Hello, I'm Deniece Barnes, and this is Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. April is Autism Awareness Month. Joining me today is Melissa Meadows, and she is the Community Outreach Director for the Autism Society of Middle Tennessee. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Autism, Melissa, is a very, very serious illness, if you will. What I want to ask of you is, would you give my listeners and viewers more detailed information about your role with the Autism Society of Middle Tennessee, and secondly, define autism?
Okay. Well, the Autism Society of Middle Tennessee is a support and referral service. So basically, our mission statement is not to cure autism. Our mission statement is to support the families who are living with autism right now, be that an adult who has autism or a family who has a child who has to navigate the whole process of the growth of that child, making sure they get the therapies that they need and the support that they need to navigate it. Because when you get the diagnosis, you get sent home. And you get home and you think, did that just happen? You know? So my role as the Community Outreach Director is, well, there's several things. One, it's to educate the community, which is what we do as an organization. We support, we educate, we advocate. Those are our three key words there. And for me, it's a little step further in that I want to help keep our families connected to each other.
Yes.
There's strength in numbers. There's strength in community. You have to know you're not alone, and that's what we do. Autism is a bioneurological disorder. It's not a disease. It's not something you can catch. It's not an illness. It is, there's many different factors to it. There's a possible genetic factor for a lot of folks. So it's not something that you have to think prevention on. It's something that you need diagnosis on, because early intervention is key. It's everything. And when you are getting warning signs about a child having autism, or even a young adult, because the higher functioning you get, it's possible that it was missed. They need that intervention. You need to know, they need to know, so you can get the help you need.
Now, it's very personal with you, Melissa, because 6 years ago, you actually found out that your son was diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about Sam.
Okay. Sam is 16 years old, and he is every bit of a teenager parents. There is very little difference going on there.
Yes.
Okay, but Sam is, and the main thing about autism that we want you to know, and this is something we educate the public on all the time, is autism is a spectrum, okay? And that means that there are degrees to the disorder. You can have low functioning, being nonverbal, being non-communicative, not being able to process things well at all. Then you can have midline, where, and down here we may have a person who might need care for the rest of their life. Okay, and then you get midline where, we can kind of be a greeter at Walmart and have a job of bagging groceries or something, and maybe a partial independence in adulthood. Yes. And then you go all the way to the higher functioning end, and that's my son. It's called Asperger's syndrome on the upper end of the scale. And so for my son, he did everything on time. He walked on time, he talked on time, he crawled, he pulled up, he knew his ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and his colors and all of that. And so it was missed. In this country, we define success as being academically successful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
And so my son at 7 years old was misdiagnosed with ADHD, a hyperactivity disorder, which is a branch of the tree.
Oh, is it?
Sure.
Okay.
It can be a branch of the tree. And so I kept telling doctors all along, and we were in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. I was paying big money for good doctors. I kept saying, we have it, but we're not on it. I can't explain that to you.
Needed more information.
Something's not right, because, my choice at the time was to choose medication.
Yes.
And it really wasn't working. People were telling me, if that works, it'll be like a light switch coming on. We weren't getting the light switch, y'all. We weren't getting the light switch.
Really?
And so I kept going back saying something's not right. Okay, so 3 years of misdiagnosis turned into an Asperger diagnosis, high-functioning autism, at 10 years old. So it took us 3 years of going in the opposite direction for us to finally find out. And you know how I found out?
How did you find out?
It was a mother. In my daughter's class, I'm eating lunch with my daughter at school. It was another mom who said, have you had him neurologically tested? And I said, what's that? And she said, well, it costs a lot of money. And I said, well, then I know I haven't done that yet. She said, go have him neurologically tested for developmental disability.
In over 3 years, none of the doctors suggested this.
Not one.
Wow.
Not pediatricians, not psychologists, not psychiatrists. And when he got his diagnosis, it was textbook. Before the doctor ever met my son, he said, I haven't met your son yet. Let me describe him to you. Wow. And every single thing, it was as if he were a fly on the wall in my house. It brought me to weeping tears.
I'm sure.
Because
sure it did.
That's exactly what I had been looking at his whole life and didn't know. So, and now when you're on the lower end of the spectrum, those are, I'm not going to say it's an easier diagnosis, but it's more clear. A lot of our families go get tested because they think their child is deaf. Their child's not responding to cues, and their child's not verbal when they should be by 18 months. So it's a little clearer the lower end of the spectrum you go. But again, as you go up to that higher functioning end of the spectrum,
it gets more complicated.
Gets more complicated.
I see.
And a lot of our pediatricians are now learning what to look for too. So some of our general practitioners are being educated more to know what they're looking at.
That's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. Now, Melissa, there are 3 types of ASDs. Mm-hmm. Now, you did talk a little bit about some of them. Mm-hmm. Talk more about them. Be more specific about those 3 different types.
So on this lower side, we're talking full-blown autism. And now these definitions are about to change, not significantly, but kind of. They're changing the DSM-5, which is the very black and white definition.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So you've got autism here at the lowest end of the spectrum. I don't even like saying low function. I don't even like saying that.
I understand.
People are human beings before their disorder.
Absolutely. Or retarded. Was your son ever referred to as retarded?
No, but when I was a child, and I got to tell you, that's taboo now. We don't even use that word anymore. But when you and I were in school years ago,
yes,
everyone was lumped into that.
Absolutely.
That social nuance, right? So you have autism here, and when you go more midline, you have what you call PDD-NOS, pervasive development disorder, non-specific. Then as you go to this upper end of the scale, that's when you get more autism/Asperger's, where it's more functional. To the naked eye, when you see my son, he's going to be in a regular classroom.
Good.
You're going to think he's just a little, probably nerdy, socially awkward, shy, but to the naked eye, you're not going to see autism. And so the awareness aspect of this is so important because they don't wear it on the outside of their body. When you see a child with Down syndrome, visibly you see a child with Down syndrome.
Absolutely.
That automatically brings up your compassion, hopefully, and I need to be a little more patient with this situation. With autism, it's not announced, it's not pronounced. And so when you see children maybe on the lower to midline end of the spectrum, even with Asperger's, because until you know what you're looking at, the biggest problem they have is communication. They can't make you understand their needs.
That's true.
They have sensory issues where lighting may affect them differently, sounds, a lot of them cover their ears. Things are happening around them that are affecting them in big ways. They're going to react to that. Okay. And so to the naked eye, it looks as if, that child's having a meltdown in the grocery store. Here's the South coming out. That child needs a spanking.
Absolutely, yes.
And old school grandparents,
yes,
Yes.
And when they're throwing the tantrums, okay.
Oh, she needs to get a hold of that child.
She needs to
my mama would have whooped my tail.
But it's very serious.
Yes.
It's much deeper.
It's so much deeper than that. And that parent with autism is now going to isolate. That parent who just doesn't want to leave their house because your judgment affects them so much.
Yes.
Rather than them be embarrassed and mortified by it, they'll stay at home.
Become a recluse.
And when that happens, who else has to stay at home? The siblings.
Yes.
We will have events where we will have children come to a movie. We'll have children that are 10, 13 years old that are neurotypical, the word for the normal child in the family, that's never been to a movie. Why? Because their sibling may have a meltdown and they don't do movies. So when you're talking about autism, you're talking about the family.
I see.
Living with autism.
And the children have to deal with peer pressure.
Yes.
A lot of peer pressure.
Yes. And so we do events that also are just specifically for siblings of special needs because they have to have a voice as well. And now remember, these children will be adults. There are adults walking around now, and like we said, when we were kids, everyone was retarded. It was lumped into that sum, and now you have adults that are coping. And so when you hear the prevalence rate of 1 in 88, which is what it is right now, of children being diagnosed in the United States.
1 in 88.
1 in 88. Remember, That's the population of tomorrow, okay?
Yes.
So these children will be adults that need our care, that need our bridge to the social world. And some of them will need full-time care, but there's a large portion of them that will need just a little help to be completely independent in their world. And so it's so vitally important now that we make people understand what that looks like.
Wow.
Yeah.
Melissa, I am so glad that you're interviewing with me and inciting my viewers more about autism. Again, April is Autism Awareness Month. Joining me today is Melissa Meadows. She's the Community Outreach Director for Autism Society of Middle Tennessee. Melissa, we do not know all of the causes of autism, but talk to us about some of the risk factors that we need to be aware of and maybe some of those symptoms to watch out for.
Yes, absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head. So risk factors, we don't know what causes autism. And there are many different guesses, and there's no smoking gun. So the best thing for our families to do is know the warning signs, know what you're looking at when you're looking at it. And for me, as I said, on the lower end, you're going to have possibly a child not responding to being prompted, possibly nonverbal. Like I said, some of our families fear that their child was deaf, and that's why they initially went for the testing. But as you move more towards the higher functioning end of the scale, notice them in social situations when they're not in their comfort zone. When my son, and my son has a genetic component, I can see the genetic component for my child. So a lot of the things that my son was doing, I would dismiss as, wow, Dad does that too. He's just like Dad.
Okay, I see.
And so there, as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's a lot of the times that's the situation. Not in every case, but some cases. And so I would dismiss it. But when you would see my child in a social setting outside of his comfort zone, when he was in preschool, these things were screaming at us, playing alone on the playground, mostly engaging adults. Why? Because when he would be interested in something, he only had one or two interests. And so if your thing is computers or Legos, and you're talking to a child that loves baseball and soccer, and you're going on and on and on and on, that child's going to lose interest and walk away. An adult is more likely to engage you longer. And so for my son, it was talking to adults more than children. It was sitting alone at lunch. It was being embarrassed over simple things that other children would be proud of. Birthdays. He would crawl under a desk.
Really?
When I would bring the cupcakes to the classroom, he was mortified by that. He was so embarrassed. We used to call him Turtle because he would pull his head down like this, like as if he were going into a shell, and he honestly wanted to. But I didn't know that's what I was looking at. And so little ticks here and there that make you go, Another thing is stimming. For the processing delay, when they don't really know how to tell you what they want, or anxiety is a piece of it, and it is a piece of it, they might have rapid movement. They might move their hand when they're talking to you. They might rock back and forth. They might shudder. There are different things that is stimming, and that's pretty much them relaxing themselves. Like I might have a Diet Coke to relax.
Okay.
They're going to have a rapid movement, some of them. Not always. And so the major thing that we ask you to remember is when you see one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism. There are threads that are common, but each one is so definitely individual. You're not going to see cookie cutter autism. It looks so very different in so many ways. Early intervention is everything.
And what a wealth of information you're sharing with us, Melissa. We do appreciate that. Is there any other information that I know that you and I spoke earlier regarding the Tennessee license plates?
Yes.
Regarding autism. Let my viewers know a little bit more about that.
We have a lot of wonderful plates in the state of Tennessee. We've got the Thrashers, and we've got breast cancer awareness. We don't have an autism plate. And so this is the project of 4 mothers.
Okay.
2 mothers came to us, one in Nashville, one in Knoxville, saying we want an autism plate. How can we make that happen? So the Autism Society, one of our 3 keywords is advocate. So we went with these 2 mothers to our legislation, got the bill approved. And then we had 2 mothers who are designers, and they designed the plate. So this is a 4
Beautiful.
Tennessee mom project. The state of Tennessee asks that you sell 1,000 of them before they'll print them. They just want the interest to be there. They're $35 a plate, and we have to sell 1,000 by June 21st. We've sold about 630.
Oh, well, good
So
for
we're
you.
well on our way there. Licenseplate.tnautism.org. There's also a Facebook page for it, so you can just Google Tennessee Autism Awareness License Plate and you'll find it, and we really need the support of purchasing it. We want to see it printed the first time. After that, we know it'll grow. The first time is the real key. And for this, it's about being in your own community and seeing that someone in your community is affected by autism.
That's a great idea, and hats off to you and your organization. We're wishing you all the best of success, especially with these license plates and with your son as well.
Thank you. He's doing so well, and I encourage anyone who may have a child with autism. And I can tell you that as we cross racial boundaries, it gets a little harder. There are a lot of folks that are scared to reach out. We don't want anything from you. We want to support, educate, and advocate on your behalf, and that's all. Get out, reach out for that help. There's a lot of love, and it's all free of charge.
Melissa Meadows, she's the Community Outreach Director for the Autism Society of Middle Tennessee. Melissa, again, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. April is Autism Awareness Month. Please reach out. Melissa, thank you.
Thank you so much.